It's 2020, and ours is a digital world. What does this mean for the way we live? Looking around you, your family and your communities, this new digital reality is reflected in how we live, socialize, and participate in everyday life, using digital technologies and platforms. A growing number of services are online: education, health, banking, government, and community services, and this mostly improves efficiency and outcomes. However, not everyone has access to these technologies and platforms. There are those who are digitally excluded. The Australian Digital Inclusion Index highlights that while digital inclusion is improving, around 2.5 million Australians are not online. In particular, rural residents, people with disabilities, Indigenous Australians, people with low levels of education, income, or employment, and older Australians, seniors. That's around 10% of the population. In today's episode, you'll hear from Richard Scenna from YourLink.
YourLink is focused on digital inclusion and technology for seniors and all about improving quality of life through using technology. We mainly work with aged care providers and health organisations on how they can use apps, iPads, just all this smart device kind of technology into their quality of care.
What can we do? In this podcast, I speak with those who are putting their ideas into action, focusing on the good they can do for their neighbours, communities, citizens, and the world. In this episode, we will learn more about the work that YourLink does, the barriers older Australians, seniors face, how we can help, and what Richard has learned through the course of setting up YourLink. So what does digital inclusion mean? Digital inclusion is a pathway to digital equity, where all individuals in all communities have the access and capacity they need to fully participate in society, democracy, and the economy. Improving digital inclusion means improving conditions in 5 key areas. 1. An affordable and reliable internet connection. 2. Devices that meet the need of the user. 3. Access to digital literacy training. 4. Quality technical support and applications. 5. Online content that enables and encourages independence, participation, and collaboration. Richard's desire to help seniors started, as it often does for so many of the people I speak to, from a lived experience. Back in 2009, Richard's grandmother passed away after several years in aged care. During this time and the years that followed, Richard wondered how we could find a better way to stay meaningfully connected with people who are separated from family and friends. The biggest health challenge facing Australia's aging population is loneliness and isolation, which makes the need for connection all the more vital.
Rick, one of my good friends of 20 years, had a nugget of an idea about how can we, he and I, use what skills we know around marketing, around technology, around teaching, and also around how we want our families to stay connected and seeing the devices in people's hands. How could we do something with that? And so we started developing an app. And that's where YourLink actually started, as an app around connecting seniors with their friends and family, and aged care homes, being able to share the photos with family members.
A few years into YourLink, the importance of Richard's work took on more meaning.
The last 3 or 4 years, this has all become actually quite even closer, more personal, because I saw Mum go through pancreatic cancer, and I was very hands-on in terms of the care needs that she needed, as our family was. And I was really conscious of how we could use technology, to keep her, what parts of her quality of life we could, how we could keep that going. So, photos and things like that.
When it comes to seniors and the adoption of technology, many of us are quick to assume that seniors aren't interested or able to learn new skills to properly use platforms. YourLink published a report looking into their desire for digital inclusion, and YourLink's finding quashed these myths. Seniors want to stay connected, and seniors enjoy learning. They just need the right tools and support. There have been organizations that have recognized this long before Richard and Rick founded YourLink. Decades on, the co-founders are hoping to fill gaps that are still in the market.
For about 30 years, there's been the Seniors Computing Clubs, ASCA. So Australian Seniors Computer Clubs Association. They're awesome organisations. But there hasn't been anyone quite tackling it like we have, which is around trying to marry up the technology side of things, the business. So we came at it more from the organisation's perspective and how they can do better for seniors.
They got to work building a product with seniors in mind, turning to the experts, the seniors themselves.
So in the beginning, we actually went to the University of the Third Age in Orange. University of the Third Age are these chapters and groups around the world, actually. They're like small, organic groups that are all about like third stage learning, so to speak, and seniors teaching seniors things. There was a group in Orange, and they're still our champions and great friends of ours now. And we would go to them when we had the idea of an app and going, this is what we're thinking. And they were brutally honest. They're like, I don't understand this. What does that mean? But they've been a really good sounding board for us in terms of our user perspective and our client perspective.
With this first-hand feedback, YourLink's initial offering was an application through which seniors could be connected with friends, family, and the community. After launching this, Richard and Rick realized pretty quickly that they'd missed a critical step, upskilling the seniors to use devices so they could use the application. They launched a technology workshop that is still one of their core offerings today.
We started doing these tea and technology for seniors events. So it actually started off as tea, technology and toast, but we realized we can't do the toast. We couldn't set that proposition, right? So we did tea and technology for seniors. And these have actually been like phenomenal. Yeah, so the events cover a range of topics. It can be things, generally basic things like what's gigabyte, how much data is enough, because language is such an important part. So we cover a bit about language, about Android, about Apple, what a smart device, all that kind of terminology. So that when people go into potentially a retailer, they understand what they might have or what they might be looking to get. Things like photos, apps, video calling, FaceTime and Skype, they're very much probably the most exciting part. People love that part. The audience generally takes us somewhere as well. I open up the questions and some of the topics were just like cloud, what's iCloud, how do I back up?
YourLink's tea and technology sessions are free of charge for the seniors who attend them. To date, 1,300 seniors have been trained in the community. Each session is about 3 hours and has up to 70 attendees. And attendees don't have to own a device to attend. Over time, YourLink Services have evolved to a business-to-business model. They work with health and aged care providers to enable seniors to use devices and technology. Even though their business might have expanded, their unwavering focus on the end users keeps inspiring their work and development.
The proudest kind of feedback we get is that they feel respected. They feel that when we're delivering sessions or engaging with them, we're not patronizing. We're treating them with the value that's really important for us, is that they are valued and that we're not talking down, so to speak. So for example, even in an aged care home, we helped a resident be part of a wedding that they couldn't attend. So in an aged care environment, we worked with a lifestyle person, set up the iPad, set up the family on the other end with the phone, and this grandmother was able to participate in the wedding. Now, at a push of a button, you can see anyone anywhere in the world. Like, that technology is phenomenal. And I think there's no reason why people shouldn't still be part of those lives that are really vital to them.
While not all organizations have a budget allocated for their services, Richard has observed some awareness shifts in the broader industry.
We're very much seeing people embrace the skills and embrace the values that we are putting out there in the community. There is actually probably more commonplace now around seniors and using technology, and also in the aged care environment. Health is an interesting one as well, because now even in health, when you're talking about telehealth or digital health in rural Australia, one of the demographics that are most going to benefit from this are older people. But if we don't skill them up, they're not going to be able to use that technology. So I think there's an acknowledgement that this has to happen.
The awareness might be better in recent years, But Richard feels that technology manufacturers and governments have a huge part to play.
If you look at it from a technology perspective, the easier demographics are the younger demographics. They've got a longer life cycle ahead. They will be brand champions for longer, things like that. So when you're talking about an older demographic, there are other challenges you've got to factor in. And we've had to deal with a lot of those too, keep on understanding their needs. They learn differently. It doesn't mean that they don't want to learn, but they need to learn differently. So I think the reason it hasn't been done previously is that it was just in the too hard basket for a lot of people. Even government. Now we're talking about aged care in a very different light in the last 12 months with the Royal Commission and the changing needs of how we age. Technology has a massive part in this. And so even governments needing to pay attention to this now too.
In Australia, digital inclusion bodies pay attention to this area of work, a main one being Be Connected. They focus on digital ability, working towards seniors feeling safe and confident using the internet and connected devices. Richard points out that digital ability for seniors can start in their homes, with the help of family members and friends.
We actually just did some research around this, that over 80% rely on friends and family, not surprisingly, but over 70% it's unavailable due to time or distance. But then even when it is given the support, it's fixing, it's not teaching. So we're creating this dependency, in later age that says we'll fix it for them, not that they can still do it, so to speak. So I think the support networks is one of the key things. There's fear from their perspective, confidence and fear from their own perspective. We often get people saying, I can't, or I'm too old to learn. All of that needs to kind of be overcome. But it's reminding them of the mindset when you first cook or when you first drive. Well, hopefully driving's slightly different. But, with cooking, I used to always say to Mum, I need to learn to cook. And she'd go, well, you just start. And you'll burn something, or you'll figure out you put too much salt and too much pepper, and you remind this audience of those very things that they have been teaching other people. Digital's the same.
Richard also acknowledges that there are a small number of seniors who are probably resistant to change, something he personally experienced and conquered with his own father.
I think one of the best entry points for a senior or someone who maybe is a little resistant is actually exposure. So to some degree, showing them what may be possible. You obviously, if it's, for example, your mum or your dad, you should know them reasonably well to know what an interest of theirs is, whether it's TV, whether it's programs, news, iTunes, whatever the thing is, and showing them what is possible at the push of a button. That just starts to break down the barrier. So it's exposure, I think, and also massive amount of patience. It's a longer game, so you cannot expect someone to pick it up straight away and being kind to that interaction. So, for example, there's no point in me telling Dad, you should use the phone for banking. That's me trying to put why I would think he could use it. Whereas he enjoys playing Italian card games. So I found an app that actually was an Italian card game called Briscola that he actually plays on his phone. That was a slight little entry point. And I think that hook, that entry point, is the most important part. It starts from finding finding actually the most important or most interesting thing for that person, whether it's staying in touch with family and friends, a game, football, whatever the thing is, that's the most important starting point.
Of course, this isn't the only barrier. In a vast country like Australia, access to fast, reliable internet can also be an issue. But a common barrier that cuts across all digitally excluded groups is affordability. Many do not have the financial means to get online. When it comes to seniors and support in place for their inclusion, Richard is confident barriers will be lowered because Australia has to accommodate its growing senior population. In the meantime, they hope for more seniors to attend their tea and technology sessions.
Any of our tea and technology events that take place nearby, they are welcome to register and come to. They will find out on our website on yourlink.com.au or on our Facebook page. We're at YourLink on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn.
The work around age tech is just beginning to gain traction, and YourLink plans to grow their influence in this space. YourLink has now been in operation for 5 years, and Richard is upfront about his experience overall.
In terms of things like this and social enterprise and doing for good sort of things, if it was easier, everyone would do it. Really has stuck with me, that saying, because a good friend of mine said that. It takes resilience and patience. So it's something I love this sort of stuff, but you've got to love what you do, because financially it takes time to build that. I think bringing something to life, and, from a practicality perspective, you've got to be able to still pay your bills. You've got to still be able to keep your mental health, keep yourself motivated, and have a healthy balance of optimism and practical kind of noticing of wins and things like that. So I think for me, it's been a delicate balance I'm a pretty balanced kind of person, but even for 3 years of YourLink, my mother was very sick. And so I made the decision during that period of time, with 100% support from Rick, my business partner, that I needed to focus on mum as well as the business. And that's really hard when you've got two things that need both your attention. They need a lot of attention. Yeah. This business idea needs your attention to come to life, because if you're not doing it, who's doing it? Your family member who needs your attention. How do you cover the guilt of those two?
The actual application took a year to build, and the co-founders funded it themselves, which needed them to make smarter decisions with their own money.
It means every dollar we spend was from our own. So we were very conscious of how to make it sustainable. But yeah, it took us a year. And then that's the other thing I would always also encourage anyone starting something. Your version 1, it does not have to be perfect. We get stuck in, we need this and we need this and we need this. The reality is, once it's in market, whatever it is, whether you're creating a podcast, whether you're writing a book, once it's out there, you can then evolve it from that.
YourLink is now part of an incubator at Macquarie University, which is helping them grow their business to the next stage.
In terms of the support, and they've been great here, we've found a couple of like-minded there's a whole range of businesses here, but a couple who are like us in that straddle of social enterprise for impact organizations. In terms of startup environments and where you might start your idea, you start in your garage, your home, things like that. So you often, space is not something you want to spend money on. Places like incubators or accelerators, they're two terms you'll hear often when it comes to starting up an organization. And they're essentially, an incubator is somewhere where you start off with possibly just an idea, and the idea is that it grows into fruition and you outgrow the incubator space. That means you are supported to build a business, learn the sales tools, learn the value proposition, learn all those things that are actually really important when you start a business and you want it to become public and you want it to succeed. Learning those tools is, I think, 2 layers. One is the formalized learning. So you might have workshops, you might have short courses, things like that. So at the moment, we're doing a pitching program.
Here's Richard's advice to anyone thinking of starting their own social enterprise.
If there's something within you around a cause, an interest, something like from a social conscience, a non-profit, whatever the aspect is, I think it's really important to start acknowledging that and to start writing it, start bringing it to life. Nothing's linear. To kind of put an expectation of next week I'm going to launch this and it's going to be an overnight success, or it's going to be working 6 months. I don't think that's reality. And so it's got to be a general direction. Start doing it, putting it out there, whether it's in a casual way. So, on weekends, meeting people, start putting yourself in the environments of the interest that you have. So if it's environmental, start being in the environmental space. If it's seniors, start being in the senior space, whatever the thing is, because you find your tribe.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, please rate or follow this series on whichever podcast service you're on. Another great way to support this series is to follow me on Facebook or Instagram. Just search for What Can We Do podcast. What Can We Do is an independent podcast series produced and edited by me, Prema Menon. The script editor for this series is Lisa Nadolski, and the audio you're hearing has been sweetened by Nicholas Allaire.